They called me useless at Thanksgiving dinner, right in front of the entire family. My father's words cut through the candlelit room like a blade through butter. 12 months later, I returned to that same mahogany table with proof that I'd earned more than their entire lifetime savings. The 7-figure wire transfer confirmation sat heavy in my briefcase, waiting. They counted pennies their whole lives. I counted contracts and signatures. This is how you serve revenge at a family dinner cold, calculated, and completely legal. My name is Harper Lane, and I remember every word they said that night. The dining room smelled of rosemary and burnt edges of stuffing when Douglas, my father, stood up with his wine glass at precisely 7:15 p.m. The crystal caught the light from the chandelier my mother Caroline had inherited from her mother, casting little rainbows across the damask tablecloth. 23 relatives packed around the extended table, their faces flushed from wine and warmth. "Before we continue this feast," Douglas began, his accountant's voice carrying that familiar tone of disappointing quarterly reports, "I want to acknowledge everyone's achievements this year." He gestured toward my cousin Brett. "Brett here just closed his 3rd real estate deal this month. Patricia's dental practice is thriving." His eyes swept the table, deliberately skipping over me. "Even young Tyler made the dean's list." Then he looked at me, really looked at me. The kind of look that makes you understand you're about to become an example. "And then there's Harper." He swirled his Pinot Noir. 32 years old and still pushing papers at someone else's company. Some people are builders, creators, providers. Others are, well, essentially useless. Just warming a desk chair. Caroline laughed, actually laughed, that tinkling sound she reserved for her book club gossip. "We've saved our entire lives. Douglas and I, this house paid off. Our retirement fund. 6 figures we scraped together over 35 years. That's what real work looks like. Harper, not your little, what do you call them, analytics reports." My Aunt Margaret touched my shoulder with false sympathy. "Not everyone can be successful, dear. Someone has to be average." I kept my hands steady as I cut into my turkey. The knife part of the family set, engraved with Lane Family Thanksgiving, sliced clean through the meat. I noticed everything in that moment, the financial planning document magneted to the kitchen refrigerator visible through the doorway. I'd seen the number earlier while helping with Dish's $540,000, their life's work. The smirk on my younger cousin's face. The way Maddie, my 22-year-old sister, stared at her plate in second-hand shame. "You're right," I said quietly, setting down the knife. "I am just pushing papers." Douglas raised his glass higher. "At least she admits it." The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter, the kind that comes when people are grateful they're not the target. I memorized their faces, every single one. Uncle Robert adjusting his tie. Aunt Helen reaching for more wine. My cousins exchanging glances that mixed pity with relief. I stood up slowly, folded my napkin, and placed it beside my barely touched plate. The chair scraped against the hardwood floor, my grandmother's floors. Now my parents' floors. Floors that had supported 3 generations of family gatherings where someone always had to be thrown under the bus to make everyone else feel taller. "Thank you for dinner," I said, my voice steady as a flat line. The food was excellent. As I walked toward the door, I passed Maddie. She grabbed my hand, tears threatening to spill. I leaned down, my lips barely moving as I whispered in her ear, "1 year. I'll be back at this exact table with something they can't deny." "Harper, don't be dramatic," Caroline called out. "Sit down and finish your meal." I turned at the threshold, looking back at the Norman Rockwell scene if Norman Rockwell painted families cannibalizing their own. "I'm full," I said. "Have been for a while." The drive back to Austin took 18 hours. I didn't play music, didn't listen to podcasts, just silence and the hum of tires on asphalt while their words replayed on a loop. Useless, paper pusher, average, 6 figures in 35 years. By the time I crossed the Texas state line, the hurt had crystallized into something harder, sharper, More useful. They wanted achievement success. I'd give them numbers so big they'd choke on them. But first, I had a company to build. The Austin skyline looked different when you knew you were about to burn everything down. I walked into Pioneer Ridge Analytics at 8:30 a.m., the Monday after Thanksgiving, my resignation letter folded in my jacket pocket. But first, I had one last presentation to make the supply chain optimization model I'd been developing for 6 months on my own time. Interesting theory, Harper, my boss Richard said after I finished, already checking his phone. But we're not a startup. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here. File it with the other proposals and get back to the Jameson account. The other proposals. The graveyard folder where good ideas went to die. That evening, I met Talia Moore at a wine bar on 6th Street. We'd been friends since college, and she'd become the kind of lawyer who actually read contracts for fun. I slid the Pioneer Ridge employment agreement across the table. I need to know exactly what I can and can't do, I said. Talia studied the papers through her reading glasses, occasionally humming. Non-compete is pretty standard but limited to direct competitors and data analytics. Nothing about starting your own venture in a different vertical? She looked up. You're really doing this. I've already scheduled a meeting with someone, I said. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Evan Ross didn't look like a typical angel investor. No Tesla in the parking lot, no Patagonia vest, just a guy in his 50s with oil under his fingernails from working on vintage motorcycles, who'd made his fortune selling a logistics company in the early 2000s. We met at a coffee shop that served burnt coffee in ceramic mugs older than me. Show me what you've got, he said. I pulled out my laptop, the screen already loaded with the model Pioneer Ridge had just rejected. But this time, I didn't present it as theory. I showed him the test run I'd done with data I'd legally scraped from public sources, how Midwest retail chains were bleeding money on inventory mismatches. They're holding 37% more stock than actual demand in 60% of SKUs, I explained, while simultaneously stocking out on high-velocity items every third week. It's not a supply problem. It's a prediction problem. Evan leaned back, coffee forgotten. You can prove this works. Give me 3 months and $50,000, I said. I'll show you proof that'll make these retailers beg to write checks. He studied me for a long moment. What's driving this really? I thought about lying, spinning some story about passion for innovation. Instead, I pulled up the calculator on my phone and showed him a number $540,000. That's my parents' entire life savings, I said. 35 years of work. I'm going to beat that in one. Evan smiled the kind of smile sharks probably have when they smell blood in the water. I'll give you $75,000, but I want monthly updates, and I want first right of refusal on the Series A. We shook hands. His grip was firm, calloused. That night, I submitted my resignation to Pioneer Ridge, effective immediately. Richard called me at 11:45 p.m. Sputtering about 2 weeks' notice and professionalism, I reminded him about the 3 weeks of PTO I'd never taken and hung up. Stonebridge Insights officially existed by Friday. Talia had the incorporation papers ready, the business bank account set up, the operating agreement drafted. I signed everything in her office, my hand steady despite the magnitude of what I was doing. You know most startups fail. Right? Talia said, notarizing the last document. This one won't, I said. How can you be so sure? I thought about Douglas raising his wine glass, about Caroline's laughter, about 23 relatives who'd witnessed my humiliation and done nothing but join in. Because failure isn't an option when you're running on pure spite, I said. The first hire was easy. I called Maddie that night. I need someone I can trust to handle operations, I said. Someone who understands what we're building and why. Harper, I don't know anything about supply chains. You know how to learn, you know how to work, and most importantly, you know why this matters. I paused. Plus, it gets you out of Ohio. She was quiet for a moment. When do I start? Next Monday. I'll cover your moving expenses. That weekend, I worked 72 hours straight, fueled by black coffee and leftover Thai food, building out the minimum viable product, Every line of code was a response to their mockery. Every algorithm was a calculated counterpunch. By Sunday night, I had a working prototype. It wasn't pretty, but it was functional. More importantly, it was mine. No one else's name on the door. No one else's vision to compromise for. Just me, a laptop, and a number to beat $540,000. The hunt was on. The warehouse in Round Rock smelled like cardboard and forklift exhaust at 4:15 a.m. I stood there in steel-toed boots I'd bought at Walmart, a hard hat that didn't quite fit right, and a visibility vest that had seen better days. The Y-Tech store's distribution center sprawled out like a concrete cathedral dedicated to consumer goods. You're the consultant, the floor manager. Jorge looked skeptical. Corporate said you'd be observing for a few weeks. Not observing, I said, pulling on work gloves. Working. Can't optimize what I don't understand. That first week, I unloaded trucks until my hands blistered through the gloves. I ran barcode scanners until my eyes crossed. I ate lunch with the warehouse crew in the break room that always smelled like microwaved fish, listening to their complaints about the inventory system. Computer says we got 1,000 units of those camping chairs. One worker, Dennis, complained through a mouthful of sandwich. I'm looking at maybe 300, but district manager says the computer's never wrong. Show me, I said. He led me to section G7. Sure enough, the physical count was off by 70%. But the interesting part was the pattern the system thought inventory was arriving that never actually did. Phantom shipments that existed only in the database. Every night, I drove back to my studio apartment, showered off the warehouse dust, and coded until 3 a.m. Maddie had arrived from Ohio and set up our office in my living room, 2 folding tables from Costco, and a whiteboard we'd found on Craigslist. The patterns are everywhere, I told her, mapping out the data flows. They're hemorrhaging money on products nobody wants while running out of things people actually buy. Can we prove it? She asked. Working on it. The second week, I installed Sensor's little IoT devices I'd bought with Evan's money and programmed myself. Nothing invasive, nothing that violated any agreements, just simple counters that tracked real movement versus reported movement. The third week, the pilot program at 3 test stores went live and immediately crashed. Your system doesn't work, the district manager, Tom Brennan, told me over a conference call at 11 p.m. Store managers are complaining it's disrupting their workflow. I drove to the Pflugerville location that night, found the store manager, Linda, counting inventory manually with a clipboard. The system says to reorganize everything, she said, exhausted. 20 years I've been doing this job. Show me your way, I said. She did. And she was right. Her manual system was better than mine for her specific store. But that gave me an idea. The algorithm didn't need to replace human judgment. It needed to amplify it. I spent the next 48 hours recoding everything. The new version didn't dictate, it suggested. It learned from managers like Linda, incorporated their experience into the model. Try it now, I told her at 6 a.m. Monday morning. She was skeptical, but she tried. The system suggested moving the seasonal items she'd already been thinking about moving. It confirmed her instinct about the overstock in aisle 7. It was like having a really smart assistant who actually listened. Within a week, her store's shrinkage dropped by 18%. How? Tom Brennan asked during our next call, his tone completely different. Your managers already know their stores, I said. I just gave them tools to prove what they know to corporate, and corporate gets clean data that actually reflects reality. We want to expand the pilot, all 43 stores in the Austin district. I looked at Maddie across our makeshift office. She was already pulling up contractor agreements for additional sensors. That'll require a formal contract, I said, and a bigger team. Send me the proposal. That night, I called Evan while standing on my apartment's tiny balcony, looking out at Austin's lights. Y-Tech wants to expand, I said. 43 stores. What do you need? Real office space. 3 more developers, and someone who knows how to talk to these corporate types better than I do. I might know someone, he said. Meanwhile, what's the contract worth? I did the math in my head. If we price it right, $200,000 for the year, but that's just the beginning. YTech has 1,100 stores nationally. Send me the financials. If they look good, I'll introduce you to some Series A folks. After hanging up, I sat on my balcony until the sun came up, thinking about Douglas and Caroline in their paid-off house, proud of their $540,000 nest egg. In 3 months, I'd built something that could generate half that in a year, but I wasn't even close to done. Maddie found me there, asleep in the lawn chair, my laptop still open to the contract draft. "You're going to make yourself sick," she said, bringing me coffee. 9 more months, I said, taking the mug. "We have 9 months to make this undeniable." "Is it really about the money?" she asked. I thought about those warehouse workers, about Linda with her clipboard, about Dennis eating his sandwich and knowing the system was wrong, but no one listening. "It's about being useful," I said. Actually useful, not just pushing papers. The YTech contract came through the next week, $220,000 for 12 months, with performance bonuses that could push it to $400,000. I signed it at 7:15 p.m., the exact time Douglas had stood up with his wine glass. The coincidence felt like destiny. The office wasn't much a converted loft in East Austin with exposed pipes and concrete floors that echoed when you walked. But it was ours. The lease signature dried while Maddie directed the delivery guys bringing in actual desks, not folding tables. "Harper, you need to see this," she said one morning in May, laptop open to our business banking portal. The YTech payment had cleared, but more interesting were the 3 inquiry emails from other regional chains. Word was spreading. I hired fast, but smart. 3 developers from a failed startup who understood the grind, a data analyst who'd been laid off from Dell, a sales guy named Marcus who'd sold enterprise software and looked good in a suit because someone had to, and it wasn't going to be me in my warehouse dust jeans. The Zoom calls blurred together. Excel sheets became my breakfast reading. Maddie handled operations like she'd been born for it, negotiating with vendors, managing payroll, keeping us legal and lean. "Mr. Whitaker wants to meet," Marcus announced one Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. In person. Whitaker. Everyone in Midwest retail knew the name. His family owned a chain of 170 stores across 6 states. Old money, old school, the kind of man who still wore a pocket watch. When, Thursday, Milwaukee. I looked at my bank of monitors showing real-time inventory flows. Then, at Maddie. "Book the flights." Whitaker's office occupied the top floor of a building his grandfather had built. Everything was dark wood and leather, the kind of gravitas money buys when it's been around long enough to ferment. "Ms. Lane," he said, not getting up from behind his desk. "YTech's Tom Brennan speaks highly of your system." "It works," I said simply. "Show me." I pulled out my laptop, but he waved it away. "Not presentations. Results." I handed him a single sheet of paper instead. YTech's numbers after 4 months' 23% reduction in overstock, 31% decrease in stockouts, $1.2 million in recovered revenue. He studied it through reading glasses. "And you can replicate this. With the right partnership, yes." "I don't do partnerships with startups," he said. "Too risky." "Then what are we discussing?" He leaned back, fingers steepled. "I want to buy you out." The number he wrote on a piece of paper made my chest tight. 7 figures. More than enough to throw in my parents' faces. "No," I said. His eyebrows rose. "You didn't even consider it." "I don't need to. Stonebridge isn't for sale." "Everything's for sale, Ms. Lane." "My company isn't." I stood up. "But our services are exclusive contract for your region, 2-year minimum, performance-based pricing. You'll make back your investment in 6 months." He studied me for a long moment. "You remind me of myself at your age. Hungry, desperate to prove something." "I'm not desperate," I said. "I have YTech. Peterson Foods just signed. 3 more chains are in negotiation. I don't need you, Mr. Whitaker, but you're hemorrhaging $800,000 a month in inventory inefficiency. You need me." The silence stretched out. Somewhere in the building, a clock chimed 3 p.m. "Send me the contract," he finally said. On the flight home, Maddie couldn't stop grinning. "Do you realize what this means?" "We need more developers," I said, already making lists. "No, Harper. I mean the numbers. We're at 600,000 in revenue. It's July. We're going to blow past the goal." The goal, $540,000. Their lifetime savings. "It's not enough anymore," I said. "What?" "Matching them isn't enough. I want to destroy the comparison. I want the number so big they can't even comprehend it." Talia called while we were waiting for our connection in Chicago. "The Whitaker contract just came through." "Harper, the terms. Are they acceptable?" "They're offering equity exchange. 3% of Whitaker stores for 15% of Stonebridge, plus the service contract." I did the math. Whitaker stores did $2.8 billion in revenue annually. 3% equity meant we just jumped from startup to 8-figure valuation. "Review everything," I said. "Make sure we maintain algorithmic IP rights." Already on it. That night, back in Austin, I stood in our office, our real office, with actual employees staying past 9 p.m. because they believed in what we were building. 6 people had become 12. The whiteboard that used to fit in my living room now covered an entire wall. My phone buzzed. Caroline, calling for the first time since Thanksgiving. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was short. "Harper, your father and I heard you left your job. If you need money," I deleted it before she could finish. 9 months since Thanksgiving. 3 months to go. Revenue run rate approaching 7 figures. Valuation in 8 figures after the Whitaker deal closed. I pulled up the photo I'd taken of their financial planning document, the one magneted to their refrigerator. $540,000. Their pride and joy. By August, our monthly revenue alone would exceed that. I emailed Evan, set up the series of meetings. It's time to scale. Then I texted Maddie, November 28th. "Request the day off?" "Thanksgiving." "Why?" "We're going home, both of us, and bring the incorporation documents." "Harper, trust me." That night, I worked until 4 a.m. Not because I had to, but because every line of code, every contract signed, every dollar earned was another stone in the monument I was building. They called me useless. In 3 months, I'd show them what useless really looked like when they realized their entire lifetime of work was now just my quarterly revenue. September arrived with a heat wave and a rumor that reached me through 3 different channels. Caroline had been telling the extended family that I was unemployed, possibly homeless, too proud to ask for help. "She actually said you might be living in your car," Maddie told me over lunch at our favorite taco place. Aunt Helen called me, worried. I laughed, actually laughed while signing the lease extension on our office space, now expanding to the entire floor. "Let them think what they want," I said. 2 more months. But the rumors gave me an idea, a delicious, perfectly legal idea. I called Talia that afternoon. "I need you to research something. The house in Columbus, are there any liens, second mortgages, anything?" "Why do you want to know?" "Just check." 3 days later, she called back. "There's an old mechanic's lien from a roof repair 3 years ago. $18,000. Looks like they've been paying it off in installments." "Who holds the paper?" "Columbus Home Improvement Fund. It's a small local investment group." "Can liens be purchased?" Talia was quiet for a moment. "Harper, what are you planning?" "Nothing vindictive, just insurance." "Can it be done legally?" "Yes. The fund would probably sell it for the remaining balance plus a small premium, maybe $20,000 total." "Do it. Through a clean LLC, nothing traceable to Stonebridge." "This is dangerous territory. I'm not going to foreclose on them. Talia, I just want the option, the leverage." Meanwhile, the Whitaker deal had transformed everything. The valuation brought serious Series A investors to our door. Sequoia, Andreessen Horowitz, Founders Fund. They're offering $12 million at a $60 million valuation, Evan told me during a celebration dinner in early October. Take the Graycroft offer instead, I said. $8 million at $45 million valuation. That's less money, but better terms. They'll let us maintain control. This isn't about the highest number anymore. It's about building something lasting. The paperwork signed on October 15th, overnight. My 15% equity stake was worth $6.75 million on paper. Not liquid, not yet, but undeniable. Maddie found me that night standing on the balcony of our new office, looking out at Austin's skyline. "You did it," she said. "You've already won." "Not yet," I said. "They need to see it, to understand it." "Harper, maybe we shouldn't go back for Thanksgiving. You've proven your point. Have I? They still think I'm homeless? They still tell people I'm useless. Who cares what they think?" I turned to look at her. "You do. Every time Caroline calls you, I see how it affects you. The guilt she piles on. The manipulation." Maddie's eyes filled with tears. "She says I'm wasting my life following you, that you're going to fail and take me down with you. Then we need to end this. Definitively." I started preparing the package in late October. First, the scholarship fund Lane Girls in STEM, $100,000 endowment through the Austin Community Foundation. The paperwork was perfect. Talia made sure of that. But it came with conditions. The founding sponsors, Douglas and Caroline Lane, had to sign a public agreement supporting their daughters' career choices and pledging not to discourage young women from pursuing technology careers. Second, the lien transfer paperwork. I wouldn't threaten them with it, that would be crass. But I'd have it ready, a silent reminder that power had shifted. Third, the proof. Bank statements properly redacted. The Series A announcement from TechCrunch. The Whitaker Partnership press release. "You're building a weapon," Talia said, reviewing everything. "I'm building a shield," I corrected. "For Maddie. For any other girl in that family who dares to dream beyond their small definitions of success." The invitation to Thanksgiving came via text from Caroline on November 1st. "I assume you'll be joining us if you can afford the gas money." I responded simply, "We'll be there." Then I sent a package via FedEx, signature required, inside a $500 gift certificate to a high-end grocery store for Thanksgiving shopping, and a note, "Please don't open the enclosed envelope until dinner. It's a family announcement." Caroline called immediately. I didn't answer. Her voicemail was tense. "Harper, what are you planning? Your father doesn't need any more stress." I deleted it and went back to work. The company ran itself now. Mostly. Good people doing good work. But I wanted to be there, useful, building something that mattered. The week before Thanksgiving, Mr. Whitaker called personally. "I heard you're taking Thursday off," he said. "First time since we partnered. Family obligation," I said. "Good," he said. "Family matters. By the way, my store's inventory efficiency is up 31%. You've saved me $4 million in 4 months. That's what we do." "No, Ms. Lane. That's what you built. There's a difference." I thought about Douglas, about his wine glass, about the word useless hanging in the air like smoke. "Thank you," I said. "One more thing," Whitaker added. "I'm increasing my equity stake offer. 5% of my company for 10% of yours. Think about it." The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, Maddie and I loaded my Tesla. Yes, I'd bought one with cash for the drive to Columbus. "Are you ready?" she asked. I looked at the portfolio in the back seat, the contracts, the proof, the carefully crafted scholarship that would help girls while binding our parents to public civility. "I've been ready for a year," I said. The drive to Columbus felt shorter this time. Every mile was a victory lap they didn't know I was taking. Yet. We arrived in Columbus at 3 p.m., Wednesday, checking into the Hilton downtown instead of staying at the family house. Maddie questioned the expense, but I needed the distance, the neutral ground to prepare. That evening, I met with Rebecca Martinez, president of the Columbus Women's Professional Network, at a coffee shop on High Street. She was exactly what the scholarship needed: connected, respected, and absolutely incorruptible. The fund is remarkable, she said, reviewing the documents. So, but these conditions for the sponsors are non-negotiable, I said. The Lane family sponsors must sign the pledge no public disparagement of women in technology, no discouraging career choices based on gender, and active support for their daughters' professional paths. And if they refuse, then the fund launches anyway, named after someone else. She studied me carefully. This is personal. Everything important usually is? I'll have the ceremony space ready at the community center. 2 p.m. tomorrow. Yes, they don't know about that part yet. They will. That night, I sent one text to Caroline. We'll arrive at noon tomorrow. The envelope contains time-sensitive material about Maddie's and my future. Please have the extended family present. Her response was immediate. Harper, I don't appreciate these games. I didn't reply. Thanksgiving morning. Maddie was nervous, pacing our hotel room while I reviewed everything one last time. The portfolio was perfect, every document in order, every number verified, every legal clause reviewed by Talia. What if they just refuse to look at it? Maddie asked. They won't, I said, adding one final document to the stack, the lien transfer papers, tucked discreetly at the back. Not a threat, just a reminder that the ground had shifted beneath their feet. Their curiosity will win. We drove through our old neighborhood at 11:45 a.m. The same houses, the same yards, the same people living the same lives they'd always lived. Nothing wrong with that unless they used their contentment as a weapon against anyone who wanted something different. I parked the Tesla in the driveway, right behind Douglas's 15-year-old Buick. The contrast wasn't lost on me. Harper, Maddie. Caroline opened the door, her smile tight. You look, well. The house smelled the same turkey and resentment, garnished with obligation. The extended family was already gathering, their conversations stopping as we entered. Harper. Aunt Helen rushed over. We were so worried Caroline said you were struggling. I'm fine, I said simply, setting the portfolio on the entry table. Better than fine, actually. Douglas appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. He looked older, grayer, but his expression was the same, that particular mixture of condescension and disappointment he'd perfected over decades. Glad you could make it, he said, though I hope you didn't spend money you don't have on gas. The Tesla is electric, I said mildly. Rental, Uncle Robert asked, peering out the window. No. The silence stretched until Caroline broke it with false brightness. Well, let's not stand in the doorway. Dinner's at 1. I picked up the portfolio. Actually, there's something we need to discuss first. The envelope I sent. Harper, it's Thanksgiving. It's time-sensitive. There are people waiting. Caroline retrieved the envelope from the kitchen, holding it like it might explode. The family gathered in the living room, the same configuration as last year, the same furniture, the same photos on the walls showing decades of tradition I was about to shatter. Go ahead, I said. Open it. Caroline broke the seal, pulling out the cover letter. Her face went pale as she read. What is it? Douglas demanded, snatching the paper. I watched his expression change as he read, Stonebridge Insight Series, a funding announcement, $8 million raised at $45 million valuation. Founder Harper Lane to establish a $100,000 STEM scholarship for Columbus women. This is a joke, he said flatly. I pulled out the TechCrunch article, the bank statements, the incorporation documents, one by one. I laid them on the coffee table like playing cards. Each paper made a soft sound as it landed, building a house of evidence they couldn't deny. Revenue run rate of $2.1 million, I said quietly. Enterprise clients including YTech and Whitaker stores, 12 employees, real office, real contracts, real money. Aunt Margaret grabbed one of the statements. This can't be right. This says $1.25 million in the business account as of Monday. I confirmed. That's just operating capital. The room erupted questions, accusations, demands for explanation. I let them talk over each other, their voices building to a crescendo of disbelief. Then I pulled out the scholarship documents. "Which brings me to why we're really here," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "The Lane Girls in STEM Scholarship needs founding sponsors. I'm hoping that would be you. Mom and Dad." Caroline's hands shook as she took the papers. "Harper, this is generous, but read the sponsorship agreement." Douglas read aloud, his voice getting progressively quieter. "Sponsors agree to publicly support women in technology. Pledge to never discourage career choices based on gender. Actively champion their daughter's professional achievements." "It's a legal document," I added. "Binding. Public. Rebecca Martinez from the Women's Professional Network is waiting at the community center with reporters from the Columbus Dispatch. The signing ceremony is at 2 p.m. "You're blackmailing us," Caroline gasped. "I'm offering you an opportunity," I said. "Sign this. Support your daughters publicly, and help other young women in the process. Or don't, and explain to everyone why you refused to support a scholarship in your own name." I stood up, Maddie beside me. "You have 45 minutes to decide. We'll be outside." As we walked to the door, I turned back one more time. "Oh, and Douglas, you were wrong. I don't push papers. I sign them. Big ones." The November air was crisp and clean as we stood by the car, waiting. "Do you think they'll do it?" Maddie asked. I looked at the house where I'd spent 18 years being told what I couldn't be, shouldn't want, wouldn't achieve. "They don't have a choice," I said. "That's the difference between last year and this year. Last year, they had all the power. This year, I do." The dining room table was set for 24. The same china, the same silver, the same centerpiece of fake autumn leaves Caroline had been using since I was 12. But this year, I wasn't sitting in my usual spot, the one by the kitchen door, easy to exclude from conversation. I sat directly across from Douglas. The extended family filtered in slowly, uncomfortably, like witnesses to an accident they couldn't look away from. The portfolio remained on the coffee table in the living room, its presence radiating through the walls. "Let's say grace," Douglas announced at 1:15 p.m., his voice strained. We bowed our heads. His prayer was shorter than usual, clipped. No mention of gratitude for family gathering together. No mention of blessings received. "Amen," everyone muttered. The turkey was carved. Plates were passed. The only sounds were silverware against china and Uncle Robert nervously clearing his throat every 30 seconds. Then Douglas set down his fork. "You want to humiliate us," he said, looking straight at me. "That's what this is about." "No," I said, cutting my turkey with the same engraved knife from last year. "Last year was about humiliation. This year is about accountability." "Harper's trying to help," Maddie said quietly. "The scholarship is manipulation," Caroline snapped, "forcing us to sign something at gunpoint." "At opportunity point," I corrected. "Every successful negotiation requires leverage. You taught me that, Douglas. All those dinner table lectures about business you thought I wasn't smart enough to understand." Cousin Brett shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should just eat $1.25 million, Aunt Helen said suddenly, staring at me. "In your business account. That's what the paper said." "Yes. That's more than," she caught herself, glancing at Douglas. "More than what I asked innocently. More than someone could save in 35 years. More than the lifetime savings you all praised them for last year while calling me useless." Douglas's face went red. "You ungrateful." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out 3 documents, setting them on the table like a poker player showing their hand. First, the series. A investment agreement, key numbers highlighted. Second, the YTech contract extension, signed yesterday, doubling our engagement. Third, the Whitaker Equity Exchange offer 5% of a $2.8 billion company for 10% of Stonebridge. My 10% stake in Stonebridge is currently worth $4.5 million on paper, I said, my voice steady as a surgeon's hand. If I accept Whitaker's offer, which I'm considering, that number jumps to over $15 million. Caroline's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Nobody moved to clean it up. But here's what really matters, I continued, pulling out the final document, the lien transfer papers. I own the note on this house. Douglas stood so fast his chair fell backward. What? The roof repair lien. $20,000. I bought it 2 months ago. I let that sink in. I could call it due today, right now, during dinner. You wouldn't I? I stood too, matching his stance. Last year, you stood right here and called me useless, publicly, deliberately. You laughed. I looked at Caroline. You both laughed while everyone watched. You tried to make me small. My voice never rose, never shook. But I'm not calling the lien. I'm transferring it back to you, cleared, paid in full. Consider it a gift. I placed the transfer document on the table. All you have to do is sign the scholarship agreement, publicly support your daughters, stop the toxic criticism. That's it. This is extortion, Douglas said. This is business, I replied. The kind you claimed I'd never understand. Maddie stood up then, surprising everyone, including me. I want to be able to tell people my parents are proud of me, she said, tears running down her face. I want to work with Harper without getting calls about how I'm ruining my life. I want to exist without being compared to cousins who aren't any happier than I am, but fit your narrow definition of success. The room was silent except for the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Patricia, my dentist cousin, spoke unexpectedly. Sign it, Uncle Doug. Everyone turned to stare at her. My parents did the same thing to me, she continued. Pushed and criticized until I became what they wanted. I make good money, but I hate every minute in that office. Don't do that to them. Patricia, her mother gasped. It's true. Mom, we all know it's true. This family eats its young and calls it love. Tyler, the one on the dean's list, laughed bitterly. You think I'm happy I'm pre-med because Dad will disown me if I switch to what I actually want teaching. We're all miserable, just in socially acceptable ways. The family erupted then, years of suppressed truths spilling out like Caroline's wine across the tablecloth. Arguments, confessions, accusations, the perfect family dinner destroying itself from within. I picked up my water glass, took a sip, and waited. Finally. Douglas picked up the pen. His hand shook as he signed the scholarship agreement. Each letter of his name a surrender. Caroline signed next, tears streaming down her face, though whether from humiliation or recognition. I couldn't tell. The ceremony is in 30 minutes, I said, collecting the signed documents. Rebecca Martinez is expecting us. Harper, Caroline whispered. Why did it have to be this way? I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in years. Because you made it this way. Every snide comment, every public humiliation, every time you chose cruelty over kindness, this is just the bill coming due. As Maddie and I headed for the door, Douglas called out one last time. Was it worth it destroying your family for money? I turned back, the entire room watching. I didn't destroy this family. I revealed it. And I didn't do it for money. I did it for freedom. Maddie's freedom. My freedom. Even Patricia's and Tyler's freedom, if they want it. I looked him straight in the eye. The money was just keeping score. And by your own scorecard, the one you've been waving in my face my whole life, I won. The front door closed behind us with a soft click. The November air felt like absolution. The community center was packed. Rebecca Martinez had worked miracles local press, business leaders, 2 city council members, and dozens of young women who might benefit from the scholarship. Douglas and Caroline arrived 15 minutes late, looking like they'd aged years in the hour since dinner. They sat in the front row because Rebecca had reserved seats with their names on them. No escape route. Ladies and gentlemen, Rebecca began, today we celebrate an extraordinary commitment to our community's future. The Lane Girls in STEM Scholarship, endowed with $100,000, will provide opportunities for young women to pursue careers in technology and science. The audience applauded. I watched my parents force smiles. I'd like to invite our founding sponsors, Douglas and Caroline Lane, to say a few words. Douglas approached the microphone like a man walking to the gallows. But when he spoke, something shifted in his voice. Our daughter Harper built a company from nothing, he said, the words seemingly pulled from somewhere deep. In 1 year, she accomplished more than we accomplished in 35. I was wrong to doubt her. Caroline joined him, taking the microphone. And our daughter Maddie chose to join her sister, showing courage we didn't recognize. We're proud of both our daughters. The words sounded rehearsed but genuine perhaps for the first time in years. After the ceremony, as people mingled and young women approached me with questions about Stonebridge, I noticed Douglas standing alone by the window. I walked over. "The Tesla," he said without looking at me. "You bought it cash." "Yes." "The company, it's really worth what those papers say." "More, actually. Whitaker increased his offer yesterday." He was quiet for a long moment. "Your mother and I worked our whole lives." "Every penny saved, every vacation skipped, every luxury denied. We thought that was strength." "It was," I said, "for your generation. But you did in 1 year what we couldn't do in a lifetime." "I did something different," I corrected. "Not better. Different." He finally looked at me. "I called you useless." "Yes." "You're not. I know." We stood there, father and daughter, separated by more than just the years between us. The silence wasn't comfortable, but it was honest. "The lean," he said. "You could have destroyed us." "That would have made me like you," I said simply. "I chose to be better." Maddie appeared at my elbow. "Harper, Mr. Whitaker's on the phone. He wants to discuss the new terms." I looked at Douglas one last time. "I have to take this." He nodded. As I walked away, I heard him say quietly, "Make them pay what you're worth." I stopped, turned back. I already am. Outside the community center, snow was beginning to fall early for Ohio, but not unwelcome. Maddie and I stood by the Tesla, watching the flakes dust the windshield. "So what now?" she asked. "Now we go back to Austin. We have a company to run." "I mean with them, with family." I thought about it. Maybe nothing, maybe something, but on our terms now, not theirs. My phone buzzed. "Talia. Whitaker deal memo arrived. He's offering 7% for 8% of Stonebridge. This values you at—" I turned off the phone. "Aren't you going to read it?" Maddie asked. "Tomorrow," I said. "Today, I'm done keeping score." We got in the car, pulled out of the community center parking lot, and headed south. In the rearview mirror, I could see Douglas and Caroline standing in the doorway, watching us leave. They looked smaller somehow, or maybe I'd just gotten bigger. The last thing I did before leaving Columbus was stop at the house one more time. Not to go inside, I'd said everything that needed saying, but I'd left something in the mailbox, the carved knife from the family dinner set, the one engraved Lane Family Thanksgiving. I included a note. "Some traditions are worth keeping, others need to be buried. Your choice." The drive back to Austin took 18 hours again, but this time, Maddie and I talked the whole way about the company, about the future, about what we wanted to build next, not out of spite or anger or the need to prove something to people who would never really see us, but because we were useful, actually, genuinely, powerfully useful. And that was worth more than all the money in all the accounts in all the banks in the world, although the money didn't hurt either. As we crossed into Texas, Maddie asked, "Do you regret any of it?" I thought about the year, the 70-hour weeks, the warehouse floors at 4A. The endless code, the negotiations, the careful construction of a revenge served at exactly the right temperature. "No," I said. "Regret is for people who had better options." And next Thanksgiving, we'll be in Austin, with people who actually like us. She smiled. That sounds useful. It did. The highway stretched out ahead, pointing toward home, our real home, the one we'd built ourselves, where no one kept score except the people who mattered, and where being useful meant creating something good in the world. Behind us, Ohio shrank in the mirrors until it was just another state we'd driven through, another place we'd been. Ahead was everything else, and everything else was enough. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Harper's situation? Your stories and perspectives make this community special. Until next time, remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't just success, it's freedom.